perfect after you met Jesus. Sometimes you should look a person in the eye and go, how's your life? I'm like, I suffer. It's awesome. You want to follow Jesus? Doesn't work very good, but it's true. And sometimes that vulnerableness is really effective with other people. And so we suffer, and we're getting there, but what is the goal in the suffering? Jesus is the goal for Paul. Not good thoughts about Jesus, not the right attitude about Jesus, not a healthy home, not a happy relationship, but it's first and foremost his goal is Jesus. In fact, for Paul, Jesus is the end of the goal. Jesus is the path on which he is walking, and Jesus is the map that gets him along the path to Jesus, which is the end. And you may have heard a verse, I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. Jesus is everything. He's what we strive for. He's what we walk on, and he's what gets us there. And when we forget that, we lose this single-mindedness that Paul has in this particular passage. And then he says this, wonderful thing, and somehow in verse 11, to attain the resurrection from the dead. Not that he's trying to work it, but he's trying to move with Jesus through his suffering, that he may participate in Jesus' life fully. Verse 12 says this, not that I have already obtained this or have already arrived at my goal, but I press on to take hold for which Christ Jesus took hold of me. What a great picture. Jesus reached for us first. We reach back because he did it. It's not because we're reaching. It's not because we're the ones seeking. It's not because we're amazing. We're reaching for him because he first reached for you. In the middle of your life, in the middle of your busyness, in the middle of times when you were sprinting through and thought there was nothing wrong, he grabbed you at some point. And we all have that story. And he says, you're mine. I chose you. And because he chose you first, we now choose him back. And so Paul's motivation becomes, because a God stopped and chose me, I chase that God. And then he says this. By the way, real quickly, the verb press on is going to become very important for us this morning. To press on was giving the audience of Paul a picture of a race, a Roman race. You ever seen a race before? You ever seen a marathon? It's amazing to me, because after a marathon, 20 miles, is it 26? 24, I have no idea. Where's 24? 26, okay, I should know more stuff. So after 26 miles, you will see these guys who run the whole way, which I can only imagine would be horrible. And at the very end, last 100 yards, they actually find it in themselves to speed up, and there's like two guys neck and neck, and they're racing and pushing each other. That's what the verse means. That moment of seeing the goal and pushing yourself for that last pain is what I press on means. I press on to grab hold of what Christ grabbed me for. I press on. You ever see the snowboarder who was racing a couple years ago in the Winter Olympics? She looked back, she was way ahead, so she decided to do a little trick. She fell, lost all the medals, lost the gold medal. Bummer. That's why you don't look back. The racer has only one view in mind, the forward. He's running this way. He's going for the goal. And then Paul says this wonderful thing. Because his goal is so narrow, Paul says this, not that I have already achieved this perfection, not that I have already achieved the resurrection, and he says, not that I've already considered myself to have taken hold of it, but there is one thing I do. There's no 10-step process. There's no 4 steps to freedom. There's no 53 steps to knowing Jesus. There is one thing Paul does. That's it. He does one thing only. His vision is so narrow, there's only one thing he needs to do to keep running that race. And he says the most wonderful words, I forget what is behind, and I strain towards what is ahead. And this morning, I want to deal with forgetting what is behind. It's the racing image, isn't it? It's that girl looking back. If you're racing and you're constantly going like this, you're not going to get anywhere. If you're worried about people behind you and all the people you're beating, you're missing it. It's dragging you back. It's slowing you down. You're missing out on the life that's intended for you. Now, you should have a little bit of a problem with this verse, by the way, especially you boys and girls who are particularly paying attention, because Paul says to forget. What did Paul just talk about a few verses earlier? His whole past. He has forgotten nothing. He hasn't forgotten anything. He just told us all about how awesome he was. And he says, forget. Paul is a liar. The Bible lies. I'm kidding. Don't leave. Don't leave up in the balcony. I'm kidding. That's not what he's saying at all. Now, a couple things I want to set parameters on here. Paul is not talking about forgetting experiences in your life that have made you a wiser person. God put you through experiences to teach you how to do life better. We're not talking about forgetting those. We're not talking about forgetting wisdom. We're not talking about touch the stove over and over again. That's hot. Oh, it's hot. Oh, it's hot. We're not talking about that. We're talking about forgetting something else, and specifically forgetting things that are dragging you back in the race, whatever that might be. Here's what I think. Forgetting means not allowing past events to restrain present actions. Past events do not pull back my present actions for God. Okay? Past events do not hold me back from doing what is right and what God is calling me to do right now in this next year. Now, there's several types of things that Paul has dealt with that help us understand what he's talking about. First of all, imagine this. Imagine a terrorist who has been a part of killing people, American citizens, becomes a pastor. And that pastor becomes a very famous pastor. He starts helping churches, he starts writing letters, and he writes one to us. And he says, look, I know my past was bad, and I even killed some Christians, but I think you should listen to me about how to fix your church. How would you feel about that? That letter would not make it to the pulpit. That letter would make it to the shredder. That's how far that one would go. It's just done. That was easy, okay? You would never hear about that letter. This was Paul. Paul was a terrifying individual who oversaw the killing of Christians. He killed them. And one day, he changed his mind from many of their perspectives, probably. And he starts writing letters and talking to them about their lives. And who is this guy? Imagine when Paul meets people, and they look at him like, you killed Christians. What? You have a lot of gall. I'm not listening to you. Imagine how much he had to always deal with that. Every time he met someone, his past catches up with him. And how easy would it have been for Paul, for that pain and that guilt that he carried with him, to allow that to pull him back. You're right. I shouldn't talk to you. You're right. I shouldn't challenge you. I've hurt you too much. You're right. I should just worry about what you think of me. But Paul says this. He says, I forget what is behind. Paul had to go around, I'm sure, and ask forgiveness of all these people. It was not easy. He didn't just forget. But in the process of letting go, he did not allow the past events to restrain his present actions for God. He never allowed it to do that. When things would pop up and start to pull him back, guilt or pain, he would step forward and release it. If he had to ask someone for forgiveness, he says, I always strive to keep my conscience clear before God and man. He also says somewhere else, wonderful verse in 2 Corinthians. He says, I don't judge anyone. Indeed, I don't even judge myself. I am not even qualified to be my own judge. Only God can do that. How freeing is that verse for you this morning? All that you that hold yourself in such high esteem and high regard and trying to live up to a law you've built. You don't even get to judge yourself, sorry. So Paul lives by these rules. So first of all, Paul has to be released from the bad things that have happened to him and bad things that others have done to him. He went to one church, they beat him, they threw him in jail, and he writes some letters later. He cannot allow the pain of the past to restrain him from moving forward. But he does something else too. There's something else that can hold him back. There's good stuff. Paul relates most of his story was good. I was a teacher of the law. I've done all these things. I have moved through life. I've helped Christians. And at some point in his life, he could have just said, I have done enough for God. I am done. I retire from doing stuff for God. I've been on a mission trip for many, many years. I'm done now. That person that needs help over there, I've done enough for God. So in some ways, in a weird way, your good stuff that you've done can also restrain you in your faith. It can hold you back. As you think of yourself and all the wonderful things you've done for Jesus, which many of you in this room have, whether you be an Awana teacher or any of these other things, they can restrain you because as he's calling you to other ministry in the moment, you're like, I've done enough this year. I went on a mission trip in January. That cleared the whole year. It was awesome. I was done for the year. I didn't have to do any more Jesus-y stuff. I could just play video games and watch the television, okay? But imagine this man. Imagine